Am I the a-hole for not taking down my video that was a gift from my best man? I have a sister that's 6 years older than me. My parents for years canceled on me last minute because of my sister. I have a basketball game? Oops, sorry. Sister doesn't feel like going out. I am graduating? Oops, sorry. Sister had a bad day at work. They have missed both major and smaller events in my life because of her meltdowns. I met the love of my life and we decided to tie the knot. From the beginning, I told my parents that I am worried my sister will ruin another special moment in my life. My mom told me over and over again it would not happen. The day of my wedding, I received a voicemail from my mom saying they couldn't come because my sister's dog was sick, and she was upset. I was hurt. My best man, however, is a jokester. He took my phone, then went to my fiancé and then asked if he could post a video of our wedding as a gift on social media. She loved his idea, but I had no idea about it until I came home. Our honeymoon was at a lakeside cabin with no cell service. The post caption was, "My best friend. He is an amazing person even if his parents never showed up for him." Video was still pictures of us next to my wife's parents, me on the dance floor, cutting the cake, where you would normally see both parents in the wedding pictures. The sound behind the video was my mom's voicemail explaining how they couldn't come because my sister's dog was sick. I came home a week later to hundreds of messages. Family members from both sides insisting I take it down. I was told my sister hasn't stopped crying and my mom is refusing to leave the house. I may be the a-hole here, but I didn't take it down when I got my messages. I didn't call my family back right away. I waited until my vacation time was over at work and enjoyed my time with my wife in our new home before I contacted anyone. My dad told me to take down the video saying it was just a bad night for them, that they will make it up to me and my wife for not coming. My reply was, "Exactly how do you plan to make up my wedding? It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You choose to ignore my feeling on the whole matter." Then he just repeated that he will make it up to me. So I told him I would take down the video only when he made up missing my wedding. Flustered, we both hung up the phone before we both said things we shouldn't have. Am I the a-hole here? I could have just taken down the video. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The truth hurts sometimes and your parents and sister just got whammied. Your friend is awesome. Please leave the video up. This. Your friend didn't manipulate their words. Your parents would have nothing to cry about if they hadn't done anything wrong. They skipped your wedding with one seriously pathetic excuse. Let them feel the effects of that. Your friend is the true MVP in this story. OP, keep that video up until the end of time. Your parents need to be reminded just how much they failed you and favored your sister. Your family doesn't like it. Lucky for you, you just married into a new one. Not the a-hole. Oh, not only would I leave it up, but would start a YouTube channel and add to it. You know, when you post holiday pictures with your mom speaking over it with, "Sorry, we can't make it. Sissy has a pimple." Or when you post baby pictures with mom/dad saying, "Sorry, but Sissy is having a bad hair day." Post links here, Facebook, Twitter. Monetize it to make a nice nest egg and enjoy your life sissy-free. Not the a-hole. They were finally called out on their blatant favoritism and they obviously didn't take it well. I'd hold off inviting them anywhere or to anything, OP, at least for a while. Don't make them your first priority when you clearly aren't theirs. Focus on your new wife and your absolutely awesome friend. They both sound like keepers. To be honest, my parents missing my wedding because my sister's dog was sick and she was sad would probably be no contact worthy for me. Especially if my sister was 6 years older than me. If she was 4 and the family pet was dying, it may be understandable. But a grown woman needing both her parents to be consoled because her dog wasn't well? Jesus. Blatant golden child/black sheep BS going on there. Daughter gets pandered and spoiled since her birth, to the point of her taking it absolutely for granted. Son gets neglected and emotionally mistreated, to the point of him knowing better than to expect anything from his parents at all. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister to adopt kids if she wants them so much? My 35 female sister Hannah, 28 female, went through a horrible divorce in 2021 and lost her home. I let her live with me for 2 years so she could save some money for a new home. I'm a single mother of 2 girls, 9 and 4. We had more than enough space for one more person, so we were happy to have her. She helps around the house, pays some of the bills, even though I told her she doesn't need to, and is generally sweet. My daughters love her too. She works part-time, and since she spends many hours at home, she willingly took up the role of a babysitter so I wouldn't have to pay for a nanny/daycare anymore. Of course, I was happy with this. On to the issue. I'm glad she takes such good care of my daughter, but sometimes I think she takes it too far. She started asking to tag along to school events for my eldest, which wasn't a problem until she started introducing my kids as hers. I talked to her about it and told her it's confusing for teachers if they have contradicting information about who my kids' parents are. She stopped, but only for a while until I learned my new neighbors think she's my kid's mom. I was floored yesterday when my youngest called her mommy in my presence. I asked Hannah what was going on and brushed it off, saying toddlers often look at random women and say mama, or random men and say dada. I instantly knew that was a lie because my daughter has never called anyone else mommy. While I was helping my eldest with homework, she told me her sister only calls Hannah mommy because Hannah told them to call her that in public, and she was scared to tell me because Aunt Hannah will get mad. I was furious. I confronted her immediately, and her response is along the lines of, "You should be happy I treat them well enough for them to see me as a second mother. You girls are happy to have a second mom as well, and I just love kids." I was fuming, and in the heat of the argument, I told her if she wants kids so much, she should adopt some of her own. I admit this was mean since she can't have kids, and it was part of what caused her divorce, and my family has been calling and texting and calling me cruel for what I said. But I also feel she needed to hear this. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I've said it before on this sub, and I'll say it again. A family member on my boyfriend's side was like this with our daughter. The end result? She called the cops on me and tried to have my daughter removed and given to her. Nip it in the bud now, because Aunt Hannah is acting very weird. Not the a-hole for reasons like this. Though she isn't a grandparent, if you end up kicking her out, the closer your sister is to them, she could end up trying to file some demand for visitation like a grandparent's right suit. She has crossed a line and clearly thinks she has done absolutely nothing wrong. Get her out before she gets enmeshed enough that a court thinks it is in the best interest of the children for her to have access to them. Not the a-hole, and kick her out. She told Opie's kids to keep a secret from Opie or else she'd get mad at the kids. Even without the secrets being "you must call me mom," that's enough reason to not want her around the kids. Yes, the secret part freaked me out big time. Incredibly worrisome. I think sister needs to see a therapist about some stuff. It's terrible that she can't conceive, plus adding on the divorce to her mental load might have made her crack a bit. Until then, I'd go low contact at least because that behavior is crazy. Not the a-hole OP. Next story. Am I the a-hole for siding with my mom over my wife and telling my wife it was her fault for putting me on the spot? My wife and I try to always side with each other in public, and if there's an issue, talk it out in private. So maybe I messed up here. My mom lives an 8-hour plane ride away, so if she is going to visit, it is going to be for at least 4 to 5 days to make it worth it. My mom is the one who moved, and my wife made it clear when she moved that she needs to be the one to come to us as she made a choice to move, doesn't have small kids, and has the ability to work when she wants with no set schedule. My mom rolled her eyes, but agreed. My wife also told me that we would not be altering our lives to revolve around my mom. While she's welcome to visit, we will not use up our limited vacation time which we want to use to do things with our kids, and it isn't our job to entertain her. I felt weird about it, but agreed. My mom visited one time, 3 years ago. We went to work as normal and she was alone in the house during the day. By the time we got home, she was clearly bouncing off the walls and about to lose it. We did our normal chore/routine, though my wife did take over some of my duties so I could visit. We had our normal blah weeknight meals, and by the end of the trip, my mom was clearly miserable, overtired and starving. She just didn't eat much. I don't know why. She didn't complain but seemed pissy. Then COVID happened. Both of us were busy and we just didn't see each other. We recently invited her to visit again, and my mom said sorry, but no. She said it was torture, and if we can't put in the effort to host her, she isn't coming. I felt that was fair, as she didn't make any demands on us. Just chose not to come. But my wife was very upset. My wife wanted me to confront her about how entitled she was being. I refused, so she called my mom and accused her of being childish and needed constant entertainment. My mom and her got into it, with my mom yelling that we were horrible hosts, and she was so bored she actually cried one day. She said she doesn't owe us her time if we don't want to put time into her, and she will never visit again unless something changes. But we have an open invitation to visit her. My wife asked me if I was going to get involved. My mom said I need to get my wife to stop attacking her. My wife demanded to know whose side I was on, and I said my mom's. My mom began laughing. My wife teared up and hung up. Now she feels I betrayed her and that I'm a mama's boy, though I haven't even seen my mom in 3 years. I told her it is her fault for putting me on the spot, and I just think my mom is entitled to the boundary if she doesn't want to visit. Now for the comments. I mean, if you want to plan things and host your mom with activities and great meals, what is stopping you? It seems to me like your wife doesn't want to be expected to drop all her responsibilities to plan, prepare, and be the host, a role that women have been conditioned to take automatically. I would also guess that your wife may feel daunted by what hosting usually means for her. Personal time off? Sure, but also planning activities, reservations and meals, cleaning and setting up guest room, cooking/grocery shopping, ensuring the kids have the right balance of grandparent time, educational time, downtime, etc. That's stressful. If you want your mom to come, have a conversation with your wife about how to ensure you can be welcoming and gracious hosts without overburdening your wife, meaning you take on more of these responsibilities because it's your mom. His wife. She runs Opie's life. We will never take the kids to visit your mother. We won't be taking any PTO during your mother's visits. We won't in any way alter our daily routines and will behave as if your mother isn't here. Now that your mother's feelings have been hurt by my design, I will yell at her for having those feelings and taking steps to avoid a repeat. I will rub salt in the wound by instructing you to tell her that you agree with me. I don't know. I think there's more to the story. Clearly, the wife and mother-in-law don't have a good relationship, so there must be background as to why wife is being like this. If my mother-in-law moved away, I'd likely have the same restrictions in place. I'm not very confrontational, so it may not come across the same way, etc. But my mother-in-law is awful to me. She doesn't respect my boundaries or the ones I've set for my daughter. She has made racist comments about my appearance for years, and that's not something I'm comfortable existing around on a frequent basis. I'm also not going to go out of my way to go visit someone who makes me uncomfortable and feel less than. I think the situation was handled poorly and that there isn't one particular person that's at fault here, but Opie is definitely an a-hole. All of his mother's complaints are ones he could have solved if he wanted to, rather than shift the blame onto his wife. Everyone sucks here. Your mom navigated airports and getting to you. Is she incapable of renting a car? Using one of yours? Your mom was starving because she expected someone to shop and cook for her. She's acting super entitled and that her visit required everyone to drop what they were doing for her. Sounds like she is high maintenance and your wife had her number even before your mom moved away. I will say your wife saying that you couldn't take time off when your mom visited was wrong. Maybe you don't take a full week off as PTO is precious, but a couple of days wouldn't have been inappropriate. She also was foolish to call your mom and argue with her instead of just leaving it alone. You are the a-hole because you denigrated your wife in front of your mother, plus not helping your mom have a better trip the first time around. We'll talk about all this later, or let's end this call and speak again another time, or a zillion other non-committal answers were better than saying, I'm on my mom's side. I'd go to counseling with your wife if I were you. Both of you have stuff to apologize for. But your mother is the biggest a-hole. She's driving a wedge in and she knows it, and you fell for it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for being strict with one daughter and lenient with the other? I, 44 female, am the mother to 2 wonderful girls. For the sake of privacy, call them Claire, 16 female, and Lucy, 15 female. I love them both very much, but I do not treat them the same. This is because their interests are different. Claire is not very good at school. She is always getting bad grades, and she simply can't focus. At first, we thought it was ADHD, but it turns out she's just not very academically gifted. On the other hand, Lucy is amazing at school consistently. Top of her class, gets a 4.0 GPA, perfect grades and all that. So what we have started doing is treating them differently. We realized that Claire is probably not going to university. I don't think she has good enough grades to get in and wants to go to trade school anyway. So we respect that and allow her to go out and hang out with her friends. But because Lucy is so gifted, we have taken the opportunity to nurture her genius. We signed her up for a sort of math/robotics camp. We asked her to do the next year's homework to stay ahead. We encourage her to do extracurricular activities. We get her to train for academic competitions. Everything. A bit more controversially, they have different screen time limits, as Lucy is taking more academically rigorous coursework and needs to study and focus more. We live in the Bay Area, so it is very competitive to go to university here, which is why we are pushing her so much. We know she will thank us later in life that we have given her a good environment to encourage her intellect. The problem is that Lucy and I got into a fight, where she asked me why Claire is allowed to go out and do non-academic things, and I replied that the reason is because they don't have the same ambitions. Lucy got mad and told me I was favoring Claire over her, to which I replied that was not true. Truth be told, I love both of them equally and I want the best for both of them. But realistically, if Lucy doesn't spend her time preparing college apps, doing extracurriculars and using her intellect, she's wasting it. While Claire doesn't need to spend as much time on her future as there is much less uncertainty. I feel bad, and while I know I'm doing the right thing, at a core I feel like there might be something wrong with the way we have approached Lucy's education. Am I the a-hole? Edit, people are accusing me of abandoning Claire. Claire knows and agrees with this arrangement, as I have looked into options for community college or trade school with her. Her GPA is not good enough for any university and she knows it. I am in no way insulting her. She is very much aware of her situation. She is very pragmatic and responsible. No. Giving up on one daughter while micromanaging and pushing another is not treating them fairly. It is fine to treat your children differently as long as you treat them fairly. But you're not doing that. You're the a-hole. Putting all your expectations on one child while giving up on the other is terrible parenting. Opie, I was ready to say not the a-hole if you were pushing Claire to try and achieve more. But you're the a-hole. A major one at that. Lucy is doing well in school. But you putting extra weight of academic responsibilities on her is going to result in her rebelling. It's better to give her some freedoms. Sit with her and discuss with her what her academic goals are. If they are to get into a top university like Harvard, then yes, tell her she will need to focus more on her schoolwork. But if she's hoping to get into another university, work out what the workload she's going to need for that is, and ask if she's willing to right now put that effort in. Lucy needs to be a part of this conversation of how much time she's dedicating to her schoolwork. Otherwise, she won't be able to fully understand its value, and she will lose motivation, and her intellect will seem like a burden to her rather than a gift. Universities also like to look at people who have life experience. Focusing 100% on school and extracurricular doesn't always pay off. Also, don't lose sight of her personal mental health. Being able to have some personal time and freedom will help her stay calm, focused, and enjoy life. Update. I was an accident, and after years of negligence, I told my family I wished they had terminated me or given me up for adoption. Original post. I was basically an accident. When I was born, my siblings were 16 male, 18 female, 20 female, 23 female, and my parents were both 46. I was never mistreated in my childhood, but I was neglected and my entire family resented me. My parents didn't really think that they would get pregnant again, but here we are. I was never really looked after for by anyone, and basically had to raise myself. No one ever really spent any time with me or played with me or anything when I was a kid. They didn't ever buy anything significant for me, just handed my siblings clothes and things. I realized this as I got older, so I focused on myself. My thought process at a time was that there was something wrong with me because my siblings were loved by them. So if I improved myself and did things for them, maybe then they would accept me and love me. I always got the best grades in school. My father was a football enthusiast and played in high school, but I was a basketball lover. But I still dropped it and took up football just to make him proud. I make sure I did all my chores readily, always kept my room clean, but nothing I did was ever enough for them. Like, for example, if I was first in class, my parents would ask me, why didn't I get a higher score? They ignored the percentile but focused on the percentage, and things like that. My siblings or parents never even bothered to show up for a single game. I was never appreciated for what I was, only detested me for what I wasn't. My siblings also did not allow me to hang out with them at any time at all. We celebrated my father's birthday yesterday. I am 16 today. My siblings did not live with us anymore and my mother had to leave early and would not return till later in the evening. So it was just him and me for the day, so I decided to serve him breakfast in his bed just as he woke up. I cooked and bought him a tie for a present. I know it's not the best present, but I was on a budget. Nothing too extravagant because I want to save as much money as possible for college, but it was definitely a smart one. I also cooked lunch for us and took care of all the chores. The most he could come up with was a pathetic thank you, and it was clear he wanted me to leave him alone, so I did just that. We all went out, siblings included, to eat dinner, and the way these would go is that they would all have a good time and I would just sit in a corner. This is the case with almost all family dinners we have ever attended. We went back home and I don't know why. I really don't know what triggered it. But for some reason, I just started crying all of a sudden. Maybe it was them being so happy together. I don't know. And when they asked me what happened, I just blew up at them and told them how I felt about my entire childhood. How they never showed me any kind of love and affection among other things. I don't know exactly what I said, but I do remember I ended it by saying that I wish that they had gotten rid of me if they hate me so much. Or could have given me up for adoption so they could all live their lives without me. My eldest sister started to say something, but I just ran up to my room and closed the door. And went to sleep listening to some Hans Zimmer because they just kept knocking at the door. Early this morning, I went out my window and went to a secluded spot that I often go to, usually to play some guitar or just pace around listening to music or just enjoy the sound of nature. I'm sitting down here right now writing this on my phone at 4:30 a.m. and don't know what to do at all. I'm sorry if I just went out on a rant, but this is the first time that I am able to tell my childhood to anyone. Now, how exactly do I tackle this problem? I have pretty much given up on my family and have spent enough of my time trying to please them. Do I still try to form any kind of bond with them? Do I completely drop them off? What exactly is the best thing to do here? Now for the top advice before reading the update. Wow. This actually got me emotional. I can't imagine your pain. You are doing great in school and will soon be going to college. Do you think you can hold it together until then? Once you move out of college, you are on your own, man. Since you told them how you feel, they will try to make you feel better. If it feels genuine to you, go with it. If not, keep strong. Hold to yourself and keep going. Your life is worth living. You have great potential and you will excel. Try to focus on all that you want to accomplish in life now that you are done trying to please your family. Life gets so much better in college. You may even find that you make friends that become like family. Try to live on campus your first year. Being away will give you and your family time to process, and it may even heal your relationship with them. You'll no longer rely on them and will be able to forge your own path. I'd also encourage you to look into therapy once you get to college. Many campuses will offer a counselor for free. It sounds like you've never had anyone to talk to about this, and a therapist can really help validate everything you are feeling and help you process. Our experiences in early childhood can affect us in so many ways. It will no doubt affect the relationships you form with new people as a young adult. Starting to process what your family put you through as soon as possible will set you up to have healthier relationships outside of your family. Start living for yourself and take back your confidence. Rejoin basketball. Get excited about college by ordering the catalogs and envisioning where you might want to live and study. You can shadow careers, which I recommended doing ASAP. I can't tell you how many times I changed my major or how many people, including myself, wasn't a fan of the day-to-day job and wish they'd chosen something else. Focus on the future because I don't think your family can make up for 16 years, but I've also found that family gets closer when you move out. Thank you, and I have got a major in mind and have already started applying for colleges. I just hope that I can find a decent scholarship because I don't really want to depend on my parents' money. You might also want to look at getting legally emancipated once you are done with high school. Otherwise, the federal financial aid programs will require your parents' income information until you are 25, regardless of whether your parents will contribute. Your student awards are based on the assumption that they will, which means more loan debt that you would have to take on to cover it. Now for the update. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the amount of support that you guys have given. It was really overwhelming, and I can't express in words how much that meant to me. I was reading all the comments and everything till about 11 to 12, then decided to go home to face the family. I arrived home to quite a melancholic environment. As soon as I arrived, the first thing they all did was hug me, which honestly surprised me. This was probably the first time in years they were showing me any kind of affection. They had prepared some food for me, and after I ate, we all had a talk. My oldest nephew, 2 years younger than me, who often reads posts from the sub, saw it and showed it to my sister. They all first of all apologized for the way they treated me. They confirmed that I was an accident and none of them wanted to deal with another baby, and I basically ruined their life plans. They didn't word it this way. They didn't really want to do anything with me, so they just started ignoring me because I never seemed to need anything from them. Their reasoning was that I was always doing great in life. I always did my chores on time, kept my things neat and clean as a kid, always got good grades, never complained about anything, did great in sports, and they just assumed that I never required/wanted anything from them. So they were able to just keep ignoring me and pretend as if I wasn't there basically. They said that this didn't justify their behavior, especially after they read a post. They just wanted to explain their own actions. It just made it easy for them to ignore me. They all asked me to forgive them for alienating me, and they said that they would do their best from now on to make me feel as I was a part of the family. They then wanted to go out and celebrate my birthday, but I was just mentally and physically exhausted. So I just went to sleep, woke up in the evening, and just ended up playing games for the rest of the night and went back to sleep. I don't really know how to feel about this. I thought about it long and hard and decided I'll try to form some kind of bond with them if that's even possible. The one thing I'll do is trying to start to work and live for just myself right now. My priority is getting to college right now, and I'll mainly work towards that. If reconciliation doesn't work out, at least I have a goal and purpose in life to work towards until I get away from here. Thank you so much for helping me and supporting me through all this. If you guys have any further questions, please feel free to ask me, and once again, thank you. Just wanted to send you a huge fierce mom hug. You sound like an incredible and resilient person, and I hope you see your worth. You deserve better. I know you will achieve amazing things. Warmest thoughts and wishes. I wasn't there for your first post, so I just want to say I'm really sorry how things have gone the first 16 years of your life. No child should ever be put in your situation. With them at least admitting their faults, I would heavily suggest you push them to get you some individual, and if you're not comfortable, family therapy. I just want to comment, however, that I really dislike that they gave any sort of reasoning for their behavior past. We were selfish and acted selfishly. Especially when it puts a little of the blame on you. You were just easy to ignore. That is not true no matter how they try and justify it. It doesn't matter how much maintenance you require. A child who is fairly independent and self-sufficient will still get all the love and positive attention they need in a healthy family. The virtue of being your parent should have gotten you the love and attention required. You repeatedly tried to get their attention in a positive way that shouldn't have been needed. Put effort into learning your father's interests, made their birthday special, and many more acts, I'm sure, with no reciprocal acts. It's their own selfishness and only their selfishness that denied you. Please do not take their reasoning comments to heart. What probably ended up happening was your family had a hard look at themselves and thought, holy smokes, how did we let it get this bad? But because they probably don't think they're that bad a person to neglect a child for 16 years, they went with, well, if they truly needed help, we would have given it them. It is rude to say they would have done differently if you had acted differently. It shifts blame from their unacceptable actions to your behavior you did or didn't do. Preach. Of course they blame it all on you. They're still being selfish and not just rude, but so callous. A teen who's remarkably in touch with his feelings finally pours his heart out to them, and all they can do is victim blame. And what if Opie hadn't been the perfect child? I shudder to think how he would have been treated because their love isn't even conditional. Yikes. Honey, I don't know how to say this in a kind way, so I'm going to just rip the band-aid off. I don't think they're sorry, and I don't think anything will change. My parents didn't want me either, but I was fortunate that my paternal grandparents fought for custody and won. I'm 33 now, and my mother hasn't spoken to me for nearly a year. Haven't heard from my father in about 3 years. They go through these phases, my mom especially, where they're so sorry they were cruel and absent. So sorry. They'll change, they'll do anything. But they never do. Apologies without behavior change are worthless. You do not owe them a place in your life just because they are your biological family. You need to decide what you want your life with, or without, them to look like, what behavior changes you want to see from them, and what you're willing to do if they refuse. I'm sorry, honey, but I just wouldn't put much stock in their response here. I'm definitely not going to be hoping for them to come around, and I am mentally preparing myself in case things don't work out. Basically hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to be the one to reach out. The ball is in their court, and this time they will be the ones who will have to make a move. Now for the last story. My dad's male 54 affair has ruined my view on my, female 22, entire family. In April 2021, while my sister, female 28, and mother, female 46, were in our home country for my mom's teeth issues, I was staying home alone with my dad, male 54. I have always loved my family. Despite having a weird gut feeling about my dad, I never knew what it was. I trusted him, but I always felt like something was off. And I think it had definitely something to do with my mother always complaining about his wrongdoings from the past. She never mentioned any cheating though. It was always about him sending money to his parents and not helping her raise us. I remember feeling resentful towards my dad for that reason and hoping they would separate. But she hadn't left him. Because according to her, he is the best father ever, and we're lucky to have a dad like him. But she would still very regularly talk bad about him to us, and tell us she doesn't care how my dad lives his life because she is independent or whatever. Anyways, back to the story. My mom and sister were in sad home country because of my mom's teeth. She got all her teeth removed. She had gum recession, and would have to go back in July to get new teeth. One day, while my dad and I were home, I was cleaning the kitchen and heard him talking on the phone on the balcony. I heard him and was curious who he was talking to because it sounded like an apology to someone. And I was thinking some family member asking him for money again. But then he was saying things like, "Of course I will introduce my children to you. My youngest, me, will finish university this year, so until then I have to financially support her. But I want a life with you. I also want to meet your children. I want to finally live my life the way I want to. I want to live with you because we share the same views on life. We're soulmates." I was absolutely stunned when I heard these things. I knew my dad wasn't a great partner, but I really never guessed that he would actually cheat on my mom. I had no idea what to do. I just couldn't confront him at that moment. I decided to talk to my sister about it when they were back. 2 days after that happened, my mom and sister came back and my mom was in the worst mental state I have ever seen her in. She had all of her teeth removed and the denture they made for her didn't fit her, but she had to travel back, so that meant she had to stay without teeth until July. She felt extremely ugly. Her confidence and self-esteem were non-existent. I told my sister about my dad having an affair, and I expected her to be shocked about it, but she seemed so normal. She later told me that since she was a kid, my dad always had multiple different girlfriends. When she was 6 years old, he even introduced her to one of his girlfriends and continued to have affairs. The last one she knew about was in 2012. After that, she moved out anyways. Apparently, my mom knew about them all and they would argue, but she would never leave. I was so shocked. I have lived my entire life not knowing any of that. I asked her why she never told me, and she said it was because I was young. I told her I wanted to tell mom about it, but she told me we should wait until she gets her teeth done because she really wouldn't be able to deal with it. I said alright, and then suddenly my dad is cheering her up, making her feel good about herself, and they're more loving than they were before. So we decided to drop it. After that, I moved out. It honestly was the best time of my life. I hate living at home. I can't stand it. I can't think of anything else but that. I am temporarily back home, but I will move out again to do my master's and work. Anything my dad does pisses me off. I hate whenever my mom talks good about him. I feel so betrayed because she always preaches independence and how men ain't it, and talks bad about almost everybody's relationship. And I also can't believe how my sister can still be so normal to my dad and act like nothing ever happened. I feel so gaslit and it is driving me crazy. I just don't know how to deal with this, but I think when I am away from them, I will feel better again. I would love advice from people who have been through something similar. Now for the advice. I am so sorry he is like this. This is a lot and probably above this form's ability level. Can you get to a therapist? It will help to have someone to talk all this out with who is also a pro. I think a therapist might really be the way to go. I've been thinking about it for some time but never got to do it. If she is aware of the affairs and says she doesn't care how my dad lives his life because she is independent or whatever, and if he is being supportive and loving to her when she needs it the most, maybe this is just a relationship they have worked out between themselves. Now is probably not the best time to raise it with your mom, but have you tried talking about it with your dad? I don't think I can have this conversation with him honestly. Back when I was younger, my sister talked to him about it apparently, but he just cried in front of her and told her he is sorry and would not do it again. Am I the a-hole for screaming at my parents and banning them from any contact with my son after they punished him with no dinner? My wife and I have a 9-year-old son. Sometimes on weekends our work schedules overlap, and my parents are happy to take him for a few hours those days. Last weekend they would have had to keep him late, so they offered to just watch him overnight. That was all fine. They've done that before, so we didn't think anything of it. The next morning my wife and I went to pick him up, and he looked like he hadn't slept all night. I tried to ask him what was up, but he just wanted out of there, so my wife took him to the car. I asked what was up, and my dad said that they didn't feed him the night before. I asked what he meant by that, and he said that my son said the F word when he dropped something. So as punishment, they didn't give him dinner. I went out for a second to tell my wife to stay there with my son, and went back inside and unloaded on them. They used that on my sister and I growing up. I never got in trouble much as a kid, but my sister was the classic teen rebel, and that was the classic lazy parenting they used on her. She was 17 and would hide food in her room because she wasn't sure if failing a test or talking back would get her punished. Now she's depressed and starves herself every time she feels bad because she thinks she doesn't deserve to eat. I was in there almost an hour. I called them crappy parents. Called my dad every swear word known to man. My mother told me I was being immature and said it wouldn't kill him to miss one meal, so I called her the C word too. By the end of it, I was beet red, my mother was sobbing, and my dad told me to get out. I was so angry. I called or texted most of the family and told them what they did, and now everyone is angry at each other. My dad's mom even told him how ashamed she is. She grew up poor, and her parents would never do that, but the family is split on it. I told them that as far as I care, those people are neither my parents nor my children's grandparents anymore, and they should get used to that idea because they'll never see their grandkids again. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I want to say that maybe you could have handled it better, but no, not really. I'm glad you've decided to keep them away from your son. This was extreme. Even for a nuclear option, this was big. Absolutely justified that OP should never leave his child with them again. And they are definitely crappy if not abusive parents. But a full hour of cursing them out? Is the family split about the tactic or about OP's reaction? I will tentatively go with not the a-hole too, but OP definitely could have just left when you went out to talk to his wife. Or anything smaller than an hour-long scream fest that the people waiting outside of the car probably caught some of it too. It sounds like OP had a lot of his own upbringing that needed to be unloaded. I'm finding it hard to say anything but not the a-hole. I agree with you. I have to wonder what else happened that wasn't mentioned here, because it definitely reads like it was years and years of being unloaded. My dad had a very similar moment with my grandparents when I was a kid, but last straw was over a lot of things that happened at once. Not the a-hole, my friend, you did the right thing by standing up for your son. But you clearly need to get some help based on this reaction. I highly recommend you find a therapist who deals with trauma history because what you are describing seems like an utter lack of control on your part, and you cannot afford to be having those reactions. You never know what might trigger you. It sounds like a lifetime of bottled-up resentment toward their parents finally spilled over. I think OP definitely needs therapy for the parent issues, but I'm not going to judge him for losing control under the circumstances we are aware of. Next story. Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my husband for sharing pictures of our daughter's birthday celebration, resulting in my family finding out about it? Ever since my brother passed away at the age of 17 on his birthday, my family decided to never celebrate birthdays ever again. It was mom and dad's decision, but because of how much the family loved my brother, extended family decided to do the same and stand in agreement with this decision. My husband would refuse to follow this decision though and kept celebrating his birthday. Me and the family didn't say a thing about it since he's not blood family. But when I first got pregnant, the argument about celebrating our daughter's birthdays occurred. My family advised me to just not celebrate her birthday, since she's a baby and won't even remember anyway. I agreed, but my husband threw a fit and insisted that we celebrate our daughter's first birthday. I caved in eventually, but told him we'd have a small, secret celebration so that my family wouldn't find out. And he agreed. The next day, I got a call from mom, and she was so upset, saying that my word meant nothing and that I have no respect for my brother's memory nor the family. I asked what she meant, and she told me she saw the birthday party pictures my husband posted on social media. I was too shocked to even argue. I hung up and went straight to my husband to confront him about it. He got defensive and said that he didn't need my permission to post pictures and that I wanted to show his family the birthday celebration pictures, since I insisted we have a small, secret party and exclude them. I explained to him how this made me look bad and a liar to my family, but he said they can get over it and called my mom snobby. I blew up at him, and we had a huge fight about it. He started sulking later and said I ruined the memory of our daughter's first birthday for him and verbally mistreated him with how I lashed out. But I solely did it out of frustration, knowing that what happened caused a massive problem between me and family. Now he's expecting an apology from me. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole and your family. This is out of control. That is an insane thing to agree to concerning people who weren't even born at a time. Your children and husband did not consent to this. It honestly sounds like your family might need some therapy all around. It is sad someone died, but a living should not have to pay a price for it every year. Birthdays are about celebrating the life of the person born that day, not about the death of a person born a different day. I bet your brother would be appalled this was his legacy, telling everyone that their lives isn't as important as his. You do look bad, and you are a liar. You should have stood up and said, "We're celebrating the life of my daughter," to your family. Go apologize to your husband. I feel like this would make a child resent the memory of their uncle more than anything. Right? This is so disrespectful to that young man who passed away. If I found out my memory was being used and excused to deprive my family, and literal babies, of joy and celebrations and birthdays, I would hunt the heck out of everyone. You're the a-hole, and so is your birth family. Whole generations should not be made to mourn someone they've never seen, and neither should it be binding on the descendant's brother-in-law or niece. I'd suggest you tell your family you're finally done mourning your brother. Your daughter is entitled to have her birthday celebrated. I can just picture in 5 years the lovely conversation you'll have. I know your schoolmates have birthday parties, birthday cakes, and birthday gifts, and you can't have one. That's because your uncle's dead. Yikes. It's time to stop the madness. You're the a-hole so hard. So any kids you have are never ever allowed birthdays because your brother died? Your family all need counseling. It reminds me of a political dictator's dying wish. It's absurd. Except I strongly doubt the brother would want this. Imagine knowing your family and their future families never celebrated another birthday. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting my daughter an apartment versus letting her move back in? My 45 female daughter, Mallory, 24 female, got married 3 years ago, and she has 2 children, 2 and 6 months. Recently, her husband revealed he's been cheating on her and is leaving her for another woman. They rent a house, but due to my daughter having no credit at the time of moving in, only his name is on the lease, and he is giving her 30 days to move out. Mallory is understandably distraught. I've been doing all I can to comfort her. She asked if she could move in with me, explaining she'd have the kids every other week. She assured me she isn't looking for childcare, as both kids are in daycare. She offered to pay rent and chip in on groceries. Now, I have always raised my kids to be independent. I didn't kick them out at 18, but I did encourage them to start doing things on their own. Mallory moved out at 19, moving in with her soon-to-be ex. My sons are in college, and plan to move out after graduating from college. They're both freshmen at the same university. I asked Mallory how her credit score was. She said she could reasonably rent, so I offered to pay first month, last month, and a deposit, along with 6 months' rent. She said it's not about the money. She's not wealthy by any means, but she does well for herself. And her ex-husband is already agreeing to give her money weekly, even before they go to court. She just wants emotional support. I told her I could do that with her living in her own place. She started to cry and said she just needs her mom right now, but I told her she was going to be okay. Now my sons are angry with me. They pointed out I have plenty of room, that Mallory has offered to pay rent. She's also not the type to shrug off responsibility of the kids, and the toddler is well behaved. To me, that doesn't matter, and they called me heartless. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. This is difficult for me, because you are reasonably helping your child out. The problem for me is this is less about them needing a space to live, and more about them needing you. For all intents and purposes, you are pushing your child away. Anytime I needed help like this, my mother was there to catch me. I live with my mother right now, because she's in her late 60s and she was lonely living alone. I still managed to be an independent adult while living with my mother. I have friends. I go to work. I often leave to hang out with other people. I also drive my mother around and run errands for her as she needs, as well as stuff like cutting the grass and clearing the snow. I personally feel like you are being heartless. It's gonna be funny when you need your kids and they blow you off. You're the a-hole. Right? I have a feeling that they will be telling her, as they drop her off at the nursing facility, that living with them would be a step backwards and would compromise her independence. Yes, Opie's shooting herself in the foot, because daughters usually are the ones left to take care of parents, especially the mother. Many sons do step up too, but my experience has seen daughters doing it more. You're the a-hole. This might be an unpopular opinion, and yes, you are 100% entitled to your own space and boundaries, but your daughter is asking for help. She even specified that she wants emotional help. Her husband just admitted to having an affair and is leaving her and appending her life and the lives of their 2 small children. Her entire world has just flipped upside down. She now has to readjust her entire life, her kids' lives, and if their youngest is only 6 months old, do all of it while still in postpartum time frame, which means extra hormones, baby brain, and everything else that comes with having a baby at home. If you want your boundaries, give her a time frame, like 3 to 6 months to start sorting yourself out. But the way you say you handled this makes you sound heartless. Yeah, this is maybe reading way too much into the situation, but if she wasn't being gently but consistently pushed out of the nest, maybe she wouldn't have needed to shack up with a loser. You had kids. It's an obligation for life. Hopefully, she takes her commitment to her children's mental well-being more seriously than her mother ever has. My immediate thought upon reading this is that no wonder the marriage failed. They moved in together at 19. Undoubtedly, that's the mom pressuring her to find somewhere else to live. Really, really sad for her. I just need my mom. No. Soon you'll be asking where your relationship went wrong and wishing she would come visit. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not charging my son rent on a home he partially owns? My oldest son, 24, is not my wife's biological child and is my child with my late wife. My late wife and I bought a 3-bedroom house when we got married. When I remarried, my current wife moved into this house with me, but I never put her name on the deed. The house was only in my name. My wife and I ended up having several children and needing to move into a bigger house. When we bought our new home, she wanted me to sell the old one. I said no, that this home was something my late wife and I purchased with the hope of one day passing on to our son, so I would make it a rental property instead. That was one of the biggest fights we ever had. She insisted we compromise, but I refused to do so. When my son graduated from college, I put his name on the deed to the house with mine, which was another fight, but I felt he was the appropriate inheritor to his mother's share. I didn't share any of the rental income with him though, as I was still paying all the taxes and insurance. At this point, the mortgage is paid off. I net over $2,000 a month from this house, which goes into the household budget. My son just got engaged and wants to move into the house after he marries his fiancée. He suggested to pay half the rent and eventually buy out my share of the house. I told my son I agreed to his plan of saving up to buy out my share, but instead of paying rent, he should just take over the taxes and insurance, and we agreed to this. My wife is livid and says I'm a massive a-hole for dramatically decreasing our household income without consulting her. She likened my decision to financial abuse. I suggested we downsize to a smaller house now that our oldest 2 kids are leaving the nest, and we can rent out the larger one and be in the same situation as before, owning 2 homes and getting rental income from one. But she called me a selfish prick and won't speak to me now. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your son's name is on the title. You have zero right to charge him any form of rent. He is an equal owner to you at this point. His paying the taxes and insurance is reasonable since he is using the home as a primary residence. But he is an equal owner, and thus has equal right to use of the property. Frankly, he should have been getting half of the rental income as soon as his name was on the property. Payment for you denying him use of what was now joint property. But what's done is done. Your wife is mad because the household is losing the rental income. But honestly, tough. It sure as heck isn't financial abuse. And I suspect she's just angry because you dared to give a damn about your son when he's not one of her children. For the folks talking about, oh no, you can charge rent, please look into what circumstances actually entitle one owner to charge another rent. Then reread a post. Nowhere does the father say that the son is taking exclusive possession of the property while he is moving in. Nowhere does the father say, and he is banning me from entry or use of the property. In fact, the father stated that he voluntarily got another home and has just been renting out the first house. Without that forced exclusivity, things like occupational rent, meaning paid for exclusive use rights when a person with an ownership interest is involuntarily barred from it, do not apply. Generally, the situations where one owner would need to pay the other rent require a court order. They are not applicable for this exact situation. Especially since he offered a solution that would generate rental income again, downsize and rent out the house they currently live in. So it seems like she is mad that he cares about his child that isn't hers. A father that remarries plus had more kids acknowledges the older son. You are a rare species, OB. Not the a-hole. Maybe rare on the sub, but we only hear about the drama llamas. Not the a-hole. Your wife is. She's trying to seize property from your son, even though he's the rightful inheritor. She wouldn't do this if it were her biological child. Needless to say, your wife just doesn't care for him. Also, you clearly stated that you already own a large house, and since your kids are moving out, you can move and rent out that house, which will probably bring in more profit. You're being reasonable while she's acting selfish.